I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, published by Simon & Schuster Saga Press, and today I am reviewing Stephen King's short novel, The Body. Now, as you know, Stephen King published different seasons in the early 80s, and it was a book that had 4 short novels in it. The first one was Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. The second one was Apt Pupil. The third one was The Body. The fourth one was The Breathing Method. And as you know, I am reviewing every Stephen King book in publication order. We are at different seasons. And I'm also reviewing each book in different seasons. And today we're at The Body. I'm also reviewing the audible.com narration of each book that I review for this channel. And a fellow named Frank Mueller narrated each one of the stories in different seasons, and he did a great job on all of them. Can't complain. A+ for Frank for doing a great job on different seasons. And your voice acting and voice narration was great in The Shawshank Redemption. It was fantastic in Apt Pupil. It was good in this. It was good in Breathing Method. A+, thumbs up. Good job, Frank. You did a great job. I always love listening to great Audible books. And I read along word for word in the actual book, too. That's just the way I enjoy doing it. I have read every Stephen King novel before. Some of them I've read when I was young, and I just read them once. A lot of them I've read over and over. This book, The Body, now in different seasons, I've read The Shawshank Redemption several times before rereading it again for these video reviews. The Body I had only read once because, of course, I had watched the movie a ton of times. And many of you might be like, what movie? What Stephen King movie was The Body? Well, if you've ever seen the movie Stand By Me, that was based off of this short novel, The Body. Great movie. Probably one of the top 100 movies ever made in a lot of people's lists. And it really does follow this book quite closely. It's a very good film adaptation. Let's talk about The Body. Let's talk about some of the influences that this book has on a lot of pop culture, and even in a lot of Stephen King's later works. This book is a lot about small town life, which we know Stephen King does well. It's a lot about young people and the angst and the sort of the coming of age things where they deal with dysfunctional families and town bullies and brothers and sisters and fathers that are abusive and all of that. All of this is in The Body. In fact, it's for a short novel, it packs a big punch as far as all of those themes go. And I have to say that this is kind of a precursor to a lot of the stuff that happens in it. More so than any other Stephen King novel, I think The Body influences it quite a bit because many of those themes that are introduced in The Body really kind of come to life in it in a much broader sort of way. Not only just it, but let's say even like the people who created Stranger Things probably got a lot of their influence from The Body and Stephen King's works. Even mainstream movies like The Sandlot, which was filmed in the early 90s, a lot of those themes from that, kids baseball movie, a lot of that is found in the Body, kids on a quest for baseball, dealing with weird adults and weird scary things and scary dogs and stuff like that. All of that can be found in The Body, and I think this story actually has influenced quite a lot more of pop culture than we may know. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. I know that themes that Stephen King explores have influenced my writing quite a bit, whether it's my first novel I wrote, which was a horror novel, or even my big epic fantasy series. He's a big influence, and a lot of that stems from this tiny little book, The Body. Let's get into the book, though. What is the book about? Well, if you've seen the movie, you know. If you haven't seen the movie or read the book, I suggest you do both because, hey, I'm here to help you have a good time, right? What's better than having a good time than watching a Stephen King movie and reading a Stephen King book? Well, do both. Watch Stand By Me and read the book, or read the book and watch Stand By Me. I don't care what order you do it in, just do it. Just please do it. It's, you'd be dumb not to. Let's talk about the book. The book is about a dead body, that's down by the railroad tracks, and some young boys want to go find the dead body and tell the authorities that it's there and kind of become the heroes of the town. How do they know that there's a dead body? Well, let's start with our narrator, who's Gordon LaChance, or as he's known in the book as Gordy. He's our narrator, and he's telling the story from the perspective as he's grown up and he's an adult, and he's telling us the story he's a writer, and a lot of Stephen King's protagonists are writers. Well, he's a writer, he's grown up, and he's now telling us the story of when he was a kid and his buddies and him went on this quest to find the dead body by the railroad tracks. Well, one of the things about Gordy is, one of the reasons he's fascinated with the dead body is because, well, when his older brother was killed in a car accident, so he's kind of a little bit consumed by death, which is another theme that runs through a lot of Stephen King books. Well, so Gordy and his buddies go on this quest. How do they know that the body is there, though? Well, one of Gordy's friends, Vern, hides under the porch, and he listens to his older brother tell a story about, how they think that there might be this dead body by the railroad tracks, and they think it might be the dead body of a kid named Ray Bowers who went missing a while back and nobody has found, and they think that he's down by the railroad tracks dead. And so Vern comes and tells his friends, and tells Gordy and Chris and Teddy, his friends, that my brother thinks there's a dead body, and my brother and his friends are going to go, they're going to go find the body, and they're going to turn it into the police, and they're going to get the credit, but we should go first. We should go get the body, and we should be the heroes of the story, right? So Gordy, Vern, Chris, and Teddy, they go off on this quest to find the dead body. And, other than, Gordy's got his problems with his, the PTSD of his dead brother and living with that. And Vern has his problems with his brother Billy, who told him about the dead body, that his brother Billy's kind of a bully and is sort of the antagonist of this story because he bullies all the kids and he chases the kids. And, a lot of people chase the kids on this quest, and the dogs and things like that. And so it's a nice, short little adventure story. If you liked The Outsiders by Hinton, you're going to love the similarities between sort of the length of the novel and some of the themes of the novel that kind of come through in this one too. Let's talk about Gordy. We've talked about Vern. Let's talk about Chris. He's one of the boys, and his dad's an alcoholic, and he lives with a lot of abuse, and that abuse carries through the whole length of the story, and towards the end there's a lot of twists and turns with Chris's sort of darker nature. And I don't do spoilers in my reviews, so if you haven't seen the movie or read the book, just know that there's some confrontations at the end that are at one point bone chilling, and at another point stand up and cheer and applaud. Great ending to this book. I won't give away the spoilers, but Chris suffers from a lot of post-traumatic stress from his own alcoholic abused father. And not only that, but the other kid, Teddy, he suffers abuse because his father was a World War II veteran and went kind of psycho. And when Teddy was a little boy, his father burnt him and scarred his face quite dramatically. And so all four of the boys are dealing with a lot of young childhood issues that they shouldn't be dealing with as they're kind of exploring the world through this quest to find a dead bodies. Not only are they exploring the world, but they're getting to know themselves and each other. And they've already got a great friendship, but it only deepens, especially when the antagonists kind of show up and start to kind of foil the quest and whatnot. So let's talk about a couple things that I also want to mention about this book. And I give a lot of publishing advice and writing advice in these videos as I'm reviewing the books. One of the interesting things I found out about this book was that Stephen King, there's a reason why Stephen King doesn't really read the manuscripts of up-and-coming writers, people that haven't been published that kind of want some writing advice. He doesn't do it. He won't do it because he did it a long time ago for a friend. And when the body was published, that friend came back and said, "Hey, you read my manuscript that's unpublished a long time ago and gave me some advice, but then you stole my manuscript and you published it as The Body and made millions of dollars. So I'm going to sue you now for plagiarism." Well, Stephen King won the lawsuit because, of course, the accusation was nonsense. Part of my advice is, and this happens to me a lot, as a published author, I get a lot of people that ask me, people that are wannabe writers, they ask me to read their works and give them a critique. I usually don't do it because I've heard a lot of stories similar to what happened to Stephen King. It's just, unfortunately, there's a lot of young writers that don't know the business very well. You know, they think that if they send their manuscript to an agent or a publisher, or if they let someone read it, that that person might steal their idea. Well, that concept, that getting that idea in your head is the mark of an amateur. Because if you really know the business, if you really know agents and authors and publishers, nobody gives a shit about your idea. They really don't. Because if you're a new author, chances are your ideas just aren't worth stealing. They're not that good. I know mine weren't when I first started writing. The first few things I wrote weren't worth stealing. And so, unfortunately, there's a lot of people that have this naive conception that people are out to steal their ideas, that they need to, you know, copyright all their ideas and all this other thing because they're going to be stolen. That's just not the case. Like I said, ain't nobody give a shit about your ideas. So if, for instance, you do start querying agents and querying letters, and querying publishers with your new novel, do not worry about anybody stealing your idea. They will not. They're not interested in your idea. They won't steal it. If they're interested in your idea, do you know what they're going to do? Well, they're going to offer you a publishing contract for that idea. They're not going to steal it. They're going to offer you a publishing contract. 99.9999% of the time, that's what's going to happen if your idea is good. That's just a little aside because I found that interesting that Stephen King had went through that when I was researching some of the stuff about this novel. A little bit of publishing insight. Keep writing. If you're a writer, keep plugging away and eventually you will get published. And I encourage everybody to keep doing that. Let me talk about let me wrap this up by saying I give The Body, even though we went on that tangent about publishing for a minute, I give The Body itself, the Stephen King novel, a solid 8 out of 10. I think it's one of his better pieces of work, especially for such a short piece of fiction. I usually do not like short stories or short novellas, but this one held my attention, as did the Shawshank Redemption and Apt Pupil. Both, all three part of this collection, different seasons. So, The Body, 8 out of 10. Solid 8 stars out of 10. I wrap up every video by saying, you know, every book I write is dedicated to Stephen King, Motley Crue, and the Oakland Raiders, because those were the most important 3 things to me when I was growing up. And so they get a shout out in every book I write. And so if you're interested in The Body, if you're interested in Stand By Me, the movie, go ahead and get both, read and watch and enjoy.